Congressman Adam Schiff is a Democrat representing California's 28th congressional district. He sits in the bipartisan committee investigating January 6th, and he joins me now. Are you surprised by Jim Jordan's statement that he will not voluntarily cooperate and provide testimony to the committee?
I have to say, I'm not that surprised by it. He said he had nothing to hide, and then he decided, well, I guess I have a lot to hide. It's unfortunate, but it is who he is, and we will do our best to figure out how do we respond to members of Congress who refuse to comply voluntarily, whether that is compulsion or whether that is trying to find the evidence using other means. But look, he acknowledged talking to Trump on the day of the attack on the Capitol. And in terms of that conversation, there are only two people, unless there were others in the room during that conversation, who can really speak to what went on. So we obviously would like him to come in, but his decision not all that surprising, because I assume that he reached the conclusion if he came in, told the truth, it would put him at odds with the former president, and he just doesn't have the courage to do that.
I want you to respond to the accusation that's leveled by Jordan and others that this is a violation of legislative norms by asking for voluntary cooperation from fellow members of Congress in the course of an inquiry, that's reckless and beyond the pale, and you've crossed some threshold that you're going to regret crossing.
Well, the most recent precedent was in the Russia investigation, and during the time, as I recall, when Nunes was the chairman, so Republican chairman, I think that's right. We extended invitations to two members of Congress, one Republican, one Democrat, and they both came in and gave voluntary testimony. And whether it was during Nunes or when I became chair, either way, there was no objection by members of Congress to it, and no objection by the members that were asked. They came in, they did what they should do. But here, it certainly appears from these two, both Perry and Jordan, that nothing matters quite so much as staying in the good graces of Donald Trump. And Chris, I have to say, watching those clips and reading Senator Round's statement, and see him refer to the facts of the election and refer to them not in a gaslighting way, you find yourself, just pleased and admiring that someone would speak the plain truth. The bar has become that low. Speaking the facts about a presidential election apparently, makes you a hero now in the GOP. But that's where we are. That's where we are in Trump's Republican Party. And it's why it's hard to get these members to come in and testify.
Well, here's a great example. Julie Sirkin reporting on John Thune's reaction. Thune has occasionally come under criticism from Trump for stating the plain fact. And this is just sort of an example of the kind of Weasley cowardice here. Well, I say to my colleague, welcome to the club, he joked. I don't think that relitigating and rehashing the past is a winning strategy. I think if we want to be a majority in January 2023. This is the most that Thune or anyone will muster, which is a kind of like instrumental tactical argument for why indulging this truly dangerous lie that resulted in a deadly insurrection is maybe not the best thing to do politically, but that's about as far as anyone will go, other than Romney.
Sadly, I think that's right. And even more sad, to my point of view, is the point you were making earlier, which is it looked like it was going to be different a year ago. In the aftermath of that terrible, tragic day, it looked like the Republican Party was going to finally recognize the disastrous ends to which Donald Trump had brought the country, and they weren't going to go along with this big lie, and they didn't expect anybody else to go along with that big lie. Not even Sean Hannity expected the party to adhere to that big lie. But a year later, they're more wedded to it than ever, and they're using it, of course, around the country to usher in these laws attacking the democratic infrastructure of the country. And in that sense, it's such a terrible but factual statement that our democracy is on weaker ground now than it was a year ago.
Let me ask you about Vice President Mike Pence. There's been a lot of reporting about this. There's a New York Times story today. I'll read you the headline. Pence and January 6th committee engage in high-stakes dance over testimony, and I'll read you a portion of this. Mr. Pence, they said, these are sources around, I guess, the ex-vice president, has grown annoyed. The committee is publicly signaling it has secured a greater degree of cooperation from his top aides than it actually has, something he sees as part of a pattern of Democrats trying to turn his team against Mr. Trump. Is that what you were engaged in?
No, we just like him to come in and share with us what he knows, and I hope that he will. I'm sure that he is weighing that same calculus that Jim Jordan and others have weighed, but I would hope that he would show greater patriotism than we see from someone like Jim Jordan. He knows what's right for the country. He knows what happened in the election. He knows the pressure campaign he was under, and he knows he could do a service to the country by talking about it. But he also knows that there's a political cost that will come with that. I hope he makes the right decision. That's all we can hope for. But in terms of how much cooperation or non-cooperation we're getting from people around him, I'm not going to comment on that. All I can say is that the vice president has very material testimony, and we hope he'll do the right thing.
Congressman, when I was about 14, 15 years old, as a 5'5" backup JV point guard, I had a moment when I realized I was not going to be an NBA player, and it was actually liberating for what I was able to do with the rest of my life after that. And I think Mike Pence could have that moment with the presidency of the United States. Might be good for everyone. Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Chris.